Just making sure we're connected and live. Good morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. On this Wednesday, my gosh, it's another long work week here, midway through, and we got tons to tackle. And as you can tell from the headline here, Pritzker encouraging protests, vaccine law signed, and Chicago priorities criticized. Tons for us to get to here with Illinois in Focus. And of course, you can join the live chat where people sound off on these issues and more. So again, go to the website, thecentersquare.com, where you can find the Illinois page. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of the Illinois page at thecentersquare.com. We will focus on what's going on at the State House, but also in Chicago and everywhere in between, just to give you a synopsis of sorts of what's going on in the state of Illinois. Several things going to be happening throughout this week. Today, Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to be outlining what Illinois' role is for the country's 250th birthday coming up next year. So we'll hear what Governor Pritzker is proposing to have as celebrations later on, but surely he's going to be asked a bunch of off-topic questions, including anticipating him to react to the issue of SNAP funding that the USDA yesterday, Brooke Rollins, talked about how they're going to hold some officials accountable across the country that aren't helping find fraud in the federal food subsidies.
In February of this year, we asked for all the states for the first time to turn over their data to the federal government to let the USDA partner with them to root out this fraud, to make sure that those who really need food stamps are getting them, but also to ensure that the American taxpayer is protected. 21 states said yes, not surprised. 29 states said yes, not surprisingly, the red states, and that's where all of that data, that fraud comes from. But 21 states, including California, New York, and Minnesota, the blue states, continue to say no. So as of next week, we have begun and will begin to stop moving federal funds into those states until they comply and they tell us and allow us to partner with them to root out this fraud and to protect the American taxpayer. As Joe Biden was working to buy an election a year ago, he increased food stamp program funding by 40%. So now as we continue to roll that back.
And is Illinois on that list of states that are going to have federal food subsidies withheld? Again, we'll find out if Illinois is going to be in compliance with this federal action concerning food stamps. We already know Illinois has 11.5% error rate of food stamps that go out. And if we don't get that under 6, it's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars of state taxpayer funds to make up the difference. So how is this going to play out? Obviously, something we'll keep an eye on here in the land of Lincoln. All right, so that's just a preview of some of the stuff we're going to be talking about tomorrow, but we got plenty to tackle for today, including Chicago priorities criticized, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson talking about the budget and taxes that he's still looking for. And you've also got Governor J.B. Pritzker signing a law about vaccine access that Republicans criticized as Trump derangement syndrome. And up next, we'll hear the governor talk about encouraging peaceful protests in the light of the ongoing court battles between the Trump administration and the state of Illinois. All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. Get the podcasts each and every weekday morning, but join us here for more each and every day with The Center Square.
But I'm not going to discourage people from showing up and protesting. I think that's one of the best ways in the United States to get your message across. Again, peacefully.
I think it's just going to be one more barrier for us to see the law enforced as it should be in an orderly way.
It's Governor J.B. Pritzker being asked yesterday about the ongoing court battles over use of force and immigration enforcement. And he says that he's still encouraging protests despite federal officers saying they need protection from protests that turn violent. All while you've got a bill that's on the governor's desk that essentially will expand the state's migrant sanctuary policies. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning as we break things down for you here in the land of Lincoln. And the ongoing debate about immigration enforcement started years ago, really, when the Biden administration had the border open, and a lot of people, estimated 10, 12, 14 million people, maybe 20 million people came across during the Biden administration. Now that the Trump administration's in, you've got enforcement of immigration law and flooding the zone, as the Trump officials say, in states like Illinois that are migrant sanctuary states. They have laws in place that don't allow for local and state police to cooperate with federal law enforcement when it comes to immigration. So the sanctuary laws, a barrier, and you've got court battles that we've tried to highlight, dealing with the states being sued by the federal government for its sanctuary policies, the state suing the federal government for excessive use of force, and the state suing the federal government for use of the guard. Three major lawsuits that are pending in federal courts, but you've got the prospect of more. But for years, this has been an ongoing debate about the non-citizens that are here, and we've heard that they are asylum seekers. Well, a conservative commentator in Chicago, James McCoy, he sounded off Monday, standing with Chicago Flips Red, that he doesn't see the asylum seekers.
But lies are so blatant now, where you can walk outside your house and you can see the fact that the mayor, the governor, and even before President Biden were lying to you and telling you that these people coming over here were asylum seekers and they were not causing a problem. I actually went to the police stations and I asked them directly, are you asylum seekers? And they told me no. They told me that they were here for jobs. They were here for economic opportunities. This is not meaning an asylum seeker, okay? And yet all of the media was saying that these are asylum seekers who are here from war-torn countries, and we have to have our hearts open to them and have the government that we pay taxes to subsidize everything, subsidize their hotels, subsidize their food, subsidize their clothes, as they're neglecting us and taxing us because they cannot sustain all of the subsidies that they've given people who do not legally have a right to be in this country.
So McCoy talking about the migrant situation, he says, is not asylum seekers, but you do hear that rhetoric from time to time. And, what constitutes non-citizen? It could be somebody here legally. It could be somebody here on a visa, a work permit. It could be somebody here illegally. It could be somebody that's got temporary protected status. It could be somebody that's seeking asylum. But the ongoing immigration efforts obviously are going to continue with the Trump administration. Governor J.B. Pritzker asked yesterday if, instead of encouraging, quote, street fighters, why not just have the debate in court civilly? And Pritzker responded this way.
I've always advocated for peaceful, civil protest. Protest is fine. There are lots of ways to protest. Writing a letter is also a protest. Posting on one of the social media sites is protest. Showing up is protest. So I wouldn't discourage people from doing that. I do think, though, that a focus on changing policy in Washington and a broad endeavor to go after comprehensive immigration reform is what protesters, at least as things have diminished, the activities of ICE have diminished somewhat, that's a better focus of protest and of speaking out. But I'm not going to discourage people from showing up and protest. I think that's one of the best ways in the United States to get your message across. again, peacefully.
So the governor reiterating peaceful protests, but that's not what federal officials have been facing. In court filings, they say that protests have turned violent. They even point to gangs that have put out hits for high-ranking federal officials in their arguments in court, saying that they need to be able to use force in protecting themselves, and the Trump administration also wanting to use the Guard to protect federal assets, property, and personnel from violence. And Pam Bondi yesterday told the president during the cabinet meeting that they continue to hold people accountable for going after federal officials.
Our civil division fighting sanctuary cities every single day. Our attorneys are working on terrorism, TDA, MS-13, Antifa, President Trump. We've charged more than 500 defendants with assault on federal officers thanks to your directive.
So again, the president hearing that from Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, yesterday. All of this while you've got a bill that's on the governor's desk to expand Illinois' migrant sanctuary policies. This bill started as a prisoner of war missing in action recognition day bill, passed the House way back in April unanimously. Republicans and Democrats passing that with 0 no votes. Then when it got to the Senate in October, months later, the measure was gutted and replaced with expansions of migrant sanctuary policies. And ultimately what it does is it holds hospitals, daycares, and universities to account for having policies dealing with enforcement of federal immigration law, and they could be held liable. It also opens up the possibility of private rights of action, or also known as lawsuits, against individuals that are alleged to have violated rights. State Representative Patrick Windhorst says that this law is really going to ultimately lead to more consternation between federal officials enforcing immigration law and state police.
Well, I view
police.
this, as I said, as an expansion of the Trust Act, which I think is having a detrimental impact on immigration enforcement in our state. Of course, that's what the purpose of the law is in a lot of respects, not only the bill we're talking about, but also the Trust Act. And it's going to make for some of the issues we're seeing in the city of Chicago, where law enforcement isn't able to work with federal law enforcement, isn't able to work with local law enforcement in that immigration enforcement measures, where it's creating scenes that are chaotic and it's causing issues for those who are enforcing federal law. And I think this will cause an expansion of that, where our local law enforcement officers aren't able to help the federal officers. One other provision of this, who are going to be subject to penalties under this, will be our local and state law enforcement, which I feel creates another problem, and we're subjecting our law enforcement to these possible penalties at a time we're having a difficulty in recruiting law enforcement to work in our state. Now, as it relates to how the Trump administration and state government will interact, I think it's just going to be one more barrier for us to see the law enforced as it should be in an orderly way, and will potentially create other arguments to be made that actions taken by the federal government beyond the normal law enforcement actions would be constitutional or allowed by federal law.
Where we go from here, we'll be watching each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. So like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, get the headlines in your inbox, go to thecentersquare.com, click newsletter, and you'll see those headlines each and every morning. But you can wake up with us here for Illinois in Focus Daily, only with the Center Square.
We are doing this because the Trump administration has upended the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, the federal body that has long provided states with rigorous, evidence-driven vaccine schedules. So Illinois is stepping up to fill the void.
And now we have a bill that is obvious to me to be a Trump derangement syndrome bill.
State Representative Bill Howder on the House floor back in October. Before that, yesterday, Governor J.B. Pritzker talking about a bill that he signed about vaccine access. And it is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning for the latest here for Illinois. And you can get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. So yesterday, Governor J.B. Pritzker held a news conference, and it was about signing a bill that the legislature passed in October to have more access to vaccines. Here's a little bit of what the governor had to say right up front as he was signing this bill.
Building on my executive order from September, this law empowers IDPH and the Illinois Immunization Advisory Committee to safeguard vaccine access and maintain science-based recommendations. We are doing this because the Trump administration has upended the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, the federal body that has long provided states with rigorous, evidence-driven vaccine schedules. So Illinois is stepping up to fill the void.
So Governor Pritzker talking about this bill in response to the efforts of the Trump administration concerning vaccine access. Again, this coming together in October during fall veto session, and State Representative Bob Morgan sponsoring the bill talked about how the trust is gone because of Trump administration activities at the Health and Human Services.
Our nation has witnessed an unsettling reality. We have relied on this federal system for trusted medical guidance since 1930, and it's been eviscerated. The trust is gone. When Secretary Kennedy fired all 17 members of the CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee this summer, as the governor mentioned, it was a direct attack on public health and the legitimacy of sound medical advice. Here in Illinois, we choose not to stand idly by. We recognize that this moment demands action, and under the leadership of Governor Pritzker today, we will take it.
So Morgan talking about how they're taking action in face of the Trump administration. They also had the IDPH, Illinois Department of Public Health Director, Dr. There to discuss this. Dr. Vorha saying that this is setting up some more powers for IDPH and vaccine advocates.
It strengthens the role of IDPH's Immunization Advisory Committee, ensuring that leading experts in our state continue to inform and guide our vaccine policies. It empowers this committee to inform me and future public health directors in issuing science-based recommendations that protect our health today and prepare us for the challenges of tomorrow.
Now, back in earlier this year when this bill was filed, it is House Bill 767, and you can pull this up at the Illinois General Assembly's website and see it for yourself. House Bill 767, filed way back. Let's look at the time here. Filed at the beginning of December of last year. So yeah, it's more than a year old, pre-filed by the House Speaker, and ultimately it was about the organization of health maintenance. So it was the HMO Act, and then it ultimately was changed over time to amend it and have it as a vaccine administration requirement for pharmacists and a whole bunch of other things in there. State Representative Bill Howder, who is a medical doctor, a Republican from Morton, during debate on the House floor in October, he shared his concerns about this particular measure and what he really diagnosed the measure is.
Look, we had a PBM bill that we all supported. I know we had subject matter hearings, we had committee hearings, we were all on board, both sides. And now we have a bill that is obvious to me to be a Trump derangement syndrome bill. All right? We are pro-vaccination, but this bill makes sure that we can't vote for it because we have a bill that's signaling to their base how much they're battling the evil Trump administration.
So it's got a couple of different provisions in it, obviously dealing with vaccine access. One thing it does is it allows for pharmacies in Illinois to administer a vaccine for children as young as 3. So it was 7 before, but now it's as young as 3. So it does a variety of other things as well. Howder railing against the measure, and what he says is overreaction by Illinois Democrats who are pushing this.
Instead of being recommended for school-age kids and pregnant ladies, it's now consult your healthcare professional. Oh, the horror. We went from IDPH mandating COVID vaccinations, taking away people's jobs, their livelihoods, their business, their schooling. They couldn't travel. Businesses were shut down. OSHA tried to mandate that 80 million Americans got a vaccination. This was authoritarian. This was coercive. This was coercive compliance, and you were punished if you didn't comply. And now we have recommendations that they can't stand enough, that they have to take control of vaccination policy in Illinois. And we're going to put it in the hands of IDPH, who covered themselves in glory during COVID. And get this, if not IDPH, WHO, communist China-controlled WHO, is going to make vaccination policy or approve of vaccinations for Illinois.
So the concern being that Illinois giving deference to WHO, and that was previous legislation concerning, like, for instance, the access to Plan B drugs for pregnancies, for example. So you hear those concerns, and is that going to change anything? Obviously, the Pritzker administration critical of the Trump administration, but the Trump administration, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert Kennedy Jr., yesterday telling the president that they're changing the trajectory of what HHS's focus is.
Us, HHS, me, Dr. McCary.
And that's the focus of the Trump administration's health policies. All right? What's that going to mean moving forward? We'll be watching. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Watch the live show each and every weekday morning. If there are drops, we do record locally, so you can catch the segments in their entirety. You can also get the podcast uninterrupted. Go to thecentersquare.com for more on how to connect with Illinois in Focus Daily.
That is my sole responsibility in this moment, is to protect the people of this city. And here's the thing. We're asking corporations, 3% of them, to help us balance the budget with essentially an amount of dollars that account for about 1.6% of our overall budget.
They want higher taxes, but can't provide safety. They want more money, but can't protect our children on the way to school. They demand billions, but can't secure a single train car.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson continues to push for tax increases as the city is looking to finalize a budget before the end of this month. But what's exactly going to happen, especially as more criticism of Chicago priorities are laid out? It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for the latest and how you are impacted. Yes, you're probably listening downstate Illinois, not in Chicago. But Chicago is a major economic hub. It's also a major user of state tax dollars. And you've got policies that the State House continues to pass, including the sweeping of interest on the road fund that's going to go to the Chicagoland area for mass transit. That was approved in October. The governor has yet to sign that, but obviously that's coming down the pike. But you've got other issues concerning public safety as well, but it's going to happen with the budget. Go to Illinois the page for the Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of Illinois for the Center Square. You can get this podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Search for Illinois in Focus, and you'll be able to find it. All right, let's get into this. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson yesterday holding a pretty sweeping news conference, and he talked about Chicago's overall budget and how he's still looking for revenue.
Look, they're going to have to find 34 alders who can compel working people that they're going to balance the budget off of their backs. They're going to have to go do that work. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the tools that are available to me to protect the working people of Chicago. That is my sole responsibility in this moment, is to protect the people of this city. And here's the thing. We're asking corporations, 3% of them, to help us balance the budget with essentially an amount of dollars that account for about 1.6% of our overall budget.
So there's a lot of questions as to what exactly are going to be the tax increases imposed on Chicago residents, right? I mean, he's talked about a head tax that would charge a tax for every employee of a business that has more than a certain number of employees every month. And if you've got 100 employees, it could cost you $21,000 a year. Or something to that effect. A lot of pushback on that. Even Governor J.B. Pritzker saying, no, that's not a good idea. There's other questions about, is the mayor going to propose a property tax increase? Is the mayor going to agree to an increase in garbage collection fees? Is the mayor going to agree to an increase in taxes for sports betting? And what about the prospect of Chicago allowing for video gaming, like, the slot machines, the video slot machines that the rest of Illinois has, but Chicago doesn't? So is that going to possibly be worked in before the end of the month? Who knows? But Mayor Johnson, he says that he has not yet seen proposed cuts from aldermen, saying that the city needs to find efficiencies.
Well, we have not received a formal proposal from anyone at this point. We've started this process well back in April. And I guess some people are just used to cramming. Our team, we work nonstop, constantly. We consider ourselves responsible stewards of the people of this city. And so, this sort of rush cram work is something that, quite frankly, is, I believe the residents of the city of Chicago deserve more than that.
And the mayor saying that he is fighting, quote, for the working people and wants higher taxes on higher earners, and says he's even willing to starve himself.
I have put more skin in the game in the fight for public accommodations than any other elected official in the history of this city. Name one outside of me that have starved myself, that have taken arrests, that have gone on strikes, that have led organizing campaigns across the city and across this country to ensure that our public accommodations are actually fully supported.
So what's that mean? We're going to see a hunger strike from the mayor if he is pushing for more taxes, and especially going to Springfield and talking about a surcharge on millionaires or a progressive income tax or something to that effect. He says that is very much in the cards.
We will lead the charge. If Springfield is not willing to do it for whatever reason, and they have the reasons, then we'll go first. We've even gone as far as to say, if you don't want to do it, give us the authority to do it. But if you look at, since we've been talking about not only challenging these large corporations, but the ultra-rich to pay their fair share in taxes, the Speaker of the House recently, he also said he supports a millionaire's tax. He said it. So clearly I'm not by myself.
And is that going to be a conversation had at the State House about going after higher earners to make them pay more of a percentage of their wealth? You've got the opposition in Chicago coming from Chicago Flips Red. Social commentator James McCoy speaking Monday and criticizing Chicago priorities.
The mayor claims that he wants to make Chicago the most affordable, safe city in America. I don't know anybody who feels like Chicago is affordable. Chicago, year after year after year, is getting less affordable, especially for homeowners. In a few years, if we allow this crisis to persist, there will be no homeowners, all right? Nobody will own anything in Chicago. Chicago is not being more safe. Chicago is just, the crime is not being reported. That's just what we know. And we know this because we can go outside and see it with our own eyes.
So McCoy talking about how Chicago is not affordable and Chicago is not safe. And you've got some examples of that, especially being social media gatherings that are unsanctioned, leading to shootings happening outside of holiday festivals in downtown Chicago. Not on the west side or the south side, but downtown Chicago. And Mayor Johnson saying that, it's a focus that needs to be put on the parents of these young people.
And here's what I've called for, and we will continue to call for. We need adults and parents to absolutely know where their children are and where they're going. These unsanctioned gatherings have proven to be detrimental and harmful. And that's why we had not only additional police officers out there, we had CVI workers. It's why I'm working within my budget to make sure that we are redirecting young people towards positive interactions, whether it's with BAM or WOW or many other community-based organizations who are working hard to provide alternative outlets for young people. So I'm willing to work with anyone who understands the respective assignment. And the assignment, of course, is we gotta hold people accountable. Adults, parents have to know where their children are.
The mayor also asked yesterday about public safety, and in particular, that story of the individual charged with setting somebody on fire on a CTU train, having dozens of prior arrests where he was released, and even the electronic monitoring program in the city and the county raising some serious red flags. And it's all part of the Safety Act. It's all part of no cash bail. Somebody charged with a crime, if it's not in that net of detainable offenses, they can be let go, put on ankle monitoring pending trial. But is there really much follow-up when that ankle monitor goes off the geo-tracked area that it's allowed to be at? There's been indication, and even the Cook County Sheriff has been really vocal about opposing the ongoing electronic monitoring program, and Cook County prosecutors also evaluating it. But Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson asked about it and seems to indicate that there's more work to be done, he says.
I think that's something that is going to require all of us to continue to debate and, put on our thinking caps around how do we make sure that tragedies like this don't happen again. I still hold to my firm position that this was a severe breakdown. And it's incumbent upon all of us, the state, the county, the city, municipalities around the state, to come together to figure out how we can make sure something like this doesn't happen again.
That incident obviously horrific, and the mayor, when asked about it last week, said that it was an isolated incident. But critics say that was a cold response. Independent reporter William Kelly at the news conference yesterday asking for the mayor to respond to critics.
What do you say to those people, Mr. Mayor?
Well, first of all, what I've said from the very beginning is that this was a tragedy, and this woman is fighting for her life. And as I've said repeatedly from a question that was raised earlier, that individuals that clearly have a violent past, as well as mental health issues, should not be on the streets of Chicago. And that was a failure and a breakdown in our system. And it's incumbent upon all of us to continue to support this family and continue to pray for her. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. And again, as tragic as this is, it is a reminder of how much work we still have to do.
And then the Q&A kind of devolved from there to talk about ratings and how many people reporters actually talk to, and the criticism back and forth. Johnson even criticizing that reporter, saying he has small equipment and that his questions come off as racists, and then they moved on to another reporter. But earlier this week, Chicago Flips Red Vice President Danielle Carter Walters sharing that the Johnson administration is failing.
Just last week, a woman was set on fire on the public transit. Brandon Johnson refuses to acknowledge the real cause or hold the right people accountable. They want higher taxes, but can't provide safety. They want more money, but can't protect our children on the way to school. They demand billions, but can't secure a single train car. And they spend our tax dollars to fight President Trump in court to stop him from sending the National Guard to handle what they can.
What will the city of Chicago do with the budget coming due January 1st? Are they going to increase taxes? Are they going to change their priorities? How is this going to play out? Of course, we'll keep an eye on that, and that's why we focus here with Illinois in Focus each and every weekday morning. Go to the website, thecentersquare.com, get headlines, and you can do that by signing up for the newsletter, and you'll be emailed daily what we've got to tell you about. So it's Illinois in Focus Daily, each and every weekday morning here with the Center Square. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. Greatly appreciate you tuning in. Of course, each and every weekday morning we're here. You can also get the podcast where you get podcasts if you can't make the live show, but you still want to catch up. If you're traveling or such, you can listen to it anywhere. But obviously, go to thecentersquare.com. And don't forget, we are a nonprofit newswire service, so your donations definitely help. So be sure to share this with your friends, with your colleagues. Help them stay informed of what's going on here in Illinois each and every weekday morning. It is Illinois in Focus Daily with the Center Square.